Just in the nick of time, I now recognize Mr. Moskowitz from Florida for 5 minutes of questions.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Major General, I want to focus on the supply chain really quickly. So in a prior life, I was in charge of the COVID response for the state of Florida. I was the Director of Emergency Management at the time, coming out of doing Hurricane Michael. A year later, we wound up into COVID. And the systemic failures of the supply chain at all levels was unprecedented, right? The first 50-state disaster in American history, right? So FEMA's responding to 50 states. Every disaster management agency in each state is set up. Everyone's competing against each other for supplies. In fact, the states aren't just competing against states. The states are competing against the federal government for critical supplies. And everyone was kind of on their own. States were really on their own. The federal government obviously stepped up to help reimburse those states to pay for that. But as far as the operation was concerned, especially in the very beginning, there's just no doubt that there weren't enough emergency supplies to go to in the SNS in the beginning. And we had to rely on other countries. I was flying stuff in from China. I was flying stuff in from Italy, chartering my own planes to do so. And you know, whether that was masks or gowns or gloves, you know, or ventilators or nasal cannula oxygen, whether that was, you know, test strips or test swabs, I mean, you name it, we were on our own, okay, for a long period of time. And I'm not interested in pointing blame in this. What I want to know is, what have we done at all to fix that? Because my concern is that in the last year of the Trump administration and in the first year of the Biden administration, we spent $8 trillion in two bills, or $7.5 trillion in two bills, whatever the final number was. And nothing in there dramatically fixed that supply chain issue. So I just wanted to see if you wanted to talk about that for a couple of minutes.
Congressman, thank you very much. And I think there are a number of things that we've done in a very collaborative fashion to move forward on that. One is the White House Supply Chain Council that was established to try and address not only medical supply chain, but broader supply chain issues. And it starts with understanding not just where a piece of equipment or a pharmaceutical is finally assembled, but all the parts and pieces that go into it and where those come from as well. And so there's been a great deal of work done in that area. I'm very excited to share that we have brought on some subject matter experts to our team specifically to work on the medical supply chain aspects of that and the pharmaceutical side of that to help inform the recommendations that go forward to that supply chain council, and that will be captured in the report that we'll deliver later this year to the President and to Congress. And as we go through this, I think we need to acknowledge what you and others have touched on, that this is a dynamic discussion. It's not a snapshot, and if we make an investment here today, we're done with it forever, because supply chains are constantly changing. And so one of the great successes that we will hold up is the supply chain tower that was created during the pandemic to be able to see where there were shortfalls at that moment in time. And
I understand that, Major General. What I'm trying to figure out is, and you never want to be a general fighting the last war, right? COVID was COVID, right? Just like when you're preparing for a hurricane, you don't want to just prepare for Irma or Michael or Ian. You want, because if you just prepare for that same event, the likelihood is the identical event doesn't happen. It's something more dynamic, something slightly different. But as far as being able for the country to self-perform, right? Yes, absolutely knowing where we make certain things and what the production capacity is for that, I think that data is important. I don't think we had that, quite frankly. In fact, I'm still concerned about the FDA knowing that when it comes to critical medication and medicine. But I am still concerned that today we kind of don't know, you know, if we needed very similar items, right? What's our run rate, right? Internally in this country. We could support it for a month, we could support it for 3 months before we have to start, you know, importing stuff. We live in a global economy. We know we don't make everything here at all. And you know, like, what I want to know is how can we survive? Because in COVID, it was less than 30 days. It was super quick before we had to start getting stuff from other places. And these corporations have multinational agreements, so they're making stuff here and they're shipping it around the world. I dealt with that. And And we were very hesitant to use the Production Act because, oh, by the way, when you use it, it takes a very long time to retool these factories. So, you know, if you want to comment on that, you can.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Congressman. And I'll just briefly say, I think you've highlighted a number of concerns. We will address many of those in the report that we bring back to the President and Congress, and this will be a work in progress. The next pandemic almost certainly will not be COVID, so it will be a different set of supply chain issues and a different set of challenges, but building that capability is part of what we're very committed to working with you and other stakeholders on.